I thought Joe Richards did everything he possibly could within his powers in limited time he had to say, hey, Fly, I need to be starting next week. You have to honour the form that Reef has shown throughout the period of this year, averaging close to 2 goals a game, even despite a concussion, despite coming on as a sub multiple times, he's been able to perform. I mean, I don't think Jeremy Howe ever plays as a full-time forward just because he gives us so much with his ball use and his intercepting ability in the back line. The morning after a tough loss against Gold Coast, after the bye, it seemed like Collingwood just played exactly to how players or teams perform after a bye. We looked slow. You tie that in with the fact that we made 6 changes going into the game. You could say it was almost a recipe for disaster. It could have been, but you make the case that you probably needed those changes to come in. You needed Brodie Myercheck, you needed Scott Pendlebury, you needed Jordan De Goey, Joe Richards. These players had to come in, and we didn't have time to stagger these players back in. They needed to play here and now, and that's what happened. What's my biggest qualm with yesterday's game? Well, it's the obvious one. I think first and foremost, the pressure and effort wasn't there early in the game. You just saw the Gold Coast midfield waltz out of stoppages and build up with their handball chains. They just moved the ball too easily, and then when they moved the ball easily, they may have not scored at first strike, but they created repeat inside 50s, which was an absolute siege on our Collingwood defence. I think what it was a 69 inside 50s for Gold Coast, and 69 inside 50s will make any team's defence look horrible. Darcy Moore, let's talk about Darcy. Now, I know I just said, and it's conflicting that, okay, you conceded 69 inside 50s, it's not going to make anyone look good, but at the same time, there is this recurring issue with Darcy. One intercept mark yesterday, so that's one intercept mark in his last 2 games. He's a shell of himself. He is our captain, he's an all-Australian player, but he's not playing like either of those right now. Is it confidence? Is it his want to try and impact the contest as much as possible, but he's just not getting there on time? His judgment's off, and he's not leading by example right now. And it's an obvious issue. I don't have an answer for it. I'm sure Fly is working hard behind the scenes with Darcy to try figure out how we can get the best version of Darcy out there. But yeah, you tie everything in with poor effort, pressure, lack of, and then we're starting slow, we look horrible for 3 quarters, and then we flick the switch in the 4th quarter and we look like this completely different team. You look at quarter 2, we couldn't move the ball, or we didn't try to move the ball well enough from our kick-ins, for example. And then conversely, in the 4th quarter, we're moving the ball, we're looking for the inside kicks, we're looking for handball receives, whereas the most part of the game we played into Sam Collins, we played into Mac Andrew, we played into Hayden Ballard. We let them intercept and rebound and get the ball back into their inside 50 on a numerous of occasions yesterday. So that was also an issue that we couldn't work around, and fair play to Gold Coast guys. I think we saw something very different with Gold Coast yesterday. It was their maturity, their ability to respond, their want to win. Usually this time of the year, around 16, Gold Coast are already rubbed out of finals by this point. We're saying the same thing. They're weak, they're soft, they're not built for this finals mentality. But Damien Hardwick is cooking something at Gold Coast. Like, we had opportunities where we looked for 2 or 3 minutes in the first 3 quarters where we looked on. At a minute here in quarter 2, a couple minutes in quarter 3, and a minute or so in quarter 1. But anytime we looked to, I guess, punch, they countered, and they hit us with a goal in response. So that was, I guess, they really just, what's the term? They really were able to stifle us in our recovery from the momentum that Gold Coast had throughout certain periods of the game. So that was something to Gold Coast credit that we cannot undermine and understate. Their maturity, their mindset. Just look at the contrast between the 2 teams. There was a team who wanted it, they were applying pressure, they were moving well, they were running hard with the ball, versus a Collingwood side who looked underdone, looked like we had players who were coming back from injury. Like Jordan De Goey was unbelievable. I think he had 11 scoring involvements, which is incredible. He had 2 goals. He imposed himself in that first quarter, probably spent a little bit too much petrol in that first quarter. But you could see there were times out of the stoppages in particular where he just wasn't willing to run with his player. Even same with Nick Dacos. Same with Pendlebury. I just think the issue there is, again, it falls to mindset and falls to conditioning. But firstly, with the mindset side of things, it was a real somebody's going to cover that player for me mentality, which is a very dangerous, I guess, mindset to be flirting with, particularly this late in the year. We need to tick these boxes early. I thought this was something we threw out of the bag early in the year. You look at the games against GWS, Sydney, St Kilda, where we had those issues, where we were just, I guess, not picking up players, not willing to pick up the ground ball and not running with our players. I thought we'd tick that box. But yesterday we saw some old demons come out to play, and it wasn't ideal. It's not something you want to see. In saying all of this, guys, Essendon did lose last night against Geelong, which does give Collingwood a chance for redemption, in the sense that we can maintain our top 4 position if we come out next Friday night against Essendon and beat them. And it's a perfect matchup because it's a team we can, I guess, hurdle over in the ladder and send them down and send ourselves back up and really, I guess, turn around our season. Or I guess, based off that game yesterday, it will feel like a season-determining game coming up against Essendon. I think if we lose against them, we can kiss our top 4 hopes goodbye. But if we beat them, and if we play with a better brand, then things will look on the up for Collingwood. But it confuses me. It seems like Fly was confused in his post-game presser when it comes to why we leave it so late, why we want to, I guess, find ourselves in these miraculous comeback positions. Now, it's good to have comfort in these close games when we're winning those close games, of course, but it's so ingrained in us. I think it's almost worked against us sometimes, like against Bulldogs, Freo, almost North, and obviously yesterday, where we've come out and we've started slow, but we're always mindful that even though we started slow, we're going to have a really good hit in the last quarter and give them our best punch. But we're forgetting about the importance of playing the moments, playing the minutes early in the game, which is what we're not doing right now. I guess there's a few exceptions there, like Darcy Cameron, another 3 intercept marks, putting himself in really dangerous positions to take those intercept marks. Like these intercept marks, guys, they're not falling into the laps of Darcy Cameron. He's putting his body on the line to have an impact and get these intercept marks. So he's one of those players where you just can't fault. Nick Dacos, for the most part, like that last quarter, that goal that he kicked is, in my eyes, I don't know, I haven't seen any social media around it, but for me, that's a goal that should see contention to be goal of the year. He got the centre clearance, he linked up once or twice, and then he absolutely sold one of the Gold Coast players and sent him to Mars, and then he kicked it through the 2 big sticks. So for mine, that's got to be close to goal of the year. If it is not, it would be close up there. And then who else was valiant? Let me look here. I mean, Bruzzy Maynard, guys. Like, fuck, what a game Bruzzy had. I don't know and I don't care what stats he had, because what I saw there was someone who wanted to win the game. For someone like Isaac Quaynor, who played his 100th game, he had 3 efforts late in the game where he just didn't want to give up on the contest and ended up creating a stoppage with his effort. So players like Bruzzy, you need in the team, and he's been a consistent performer this year. And if you could win a Copeland Trophy just based off effort, then that man would win it every single fucking year. I can guarantee you that. Bobby Hill tried really hard yesterday. I think he had 14 disposals, had 5 shots on goal, only kicking the 1, had 3 goal assists, and he has been the goal assist magician this year. But I just think it was an almost game for Bobby. Like, he missed a couple shots, he fumbled it a couple times, the ball bounced this way while he went that way. It was one of those games for Bobby Hill. So I think he can walk out of the game with his head held high. But at the end of the day, from a team perspective, we're just lacking that energy, lacking that effort right now. We need that going into the final series if we are to play finals at all. Joe Richards comes on as a sub, has immediate impact, had 6 touches, had a goal assist, kicked that ball to Kruger, who kicked the goal to put us in front. I thought Joe Richards did everything he possibly could within his powers in the limited time he had to say, hey, Fly, I need to be starting next week. What do you guys think about Joe being the sub? And then let me ask you this. Lachie Sullivan only had 20% centre bounce attendances and played largely as a winger, as a forward as well, and only had 3 kicks for the game, 6 hand passes. So if someone like Lachie is not playing in the guts on a full-time basis, I would argue that somebody else should be in the squad in lieu of Lachie. I'd prefer a Reef McInnes. I'd prefer a Joe Richards. You have to honour the form that Reef has shown throughout the period of this year, averaging close to 2 goals a game, even despite a concussion, despite coming on as a sub multiple times, he's been able to perform. And I think he is versatile to the point where he could play some midfield time. If it's 20% centre-bounce attendances, give it to Reef and see what he can do with it. He was drafted as a midfielder. He's kicking goals forward of centre. So that's where I think you have to honour someone like Reef. So I don't know if Lachie makes it back into the side next week, unfortunately. Especially when you've got Lachie Schultz, who will be back as well. So there's that one. Then you've got Bo McCreary. What did you guys think about Bo? I made that video. I said I don't know if he makes our best 22 in the final series. He had a game where it sort of pointed out to me. I said, hey, that's probably why I made such a call. I thought he was poor with the ball. He got caught for holding the ball, and then he comes off with an injury, a calf injury. So he's going to miss at least a week, which is unfortunate for Bo. The other one that I mentioned in that video about who makes the best 22 in the final series was still Sidebottom. His decision-making going inside 50, his disposal, it's just not the same. And it's been for a long time now this year that we haven't seen the same Sidey that we've known and loved over the course of his long AFL career. Even as recent as last year, I had no dramas with the way Steely was playing last year, but at the moment, he's just a shell of himself. 55% disposal efficiency as a winger, limited impact. There's going to be some question marks around his name in the next few weeks when it comes to the selection table as well. I don't know what it is. Maybe he's losing confidence and he's thinking maybe I'm getting older, which is also part of the mindset. It's a difficult one. It really did feel like at halftime we needed Jordan De Goey to start at the centre bounce. I don't think he had a single centre bounce up until the last minute of that first half. But we were asking a lot of Geordie as well at the same time. You could tell, like I said earlier, he was using up a lot of petrol to have his impact in the middle of the ground, in the stoppages, and we paid for it when the ball went back the other way. But geez, Gold Coast Fortress is a real thing, guys. They're still undefeated at Gold Coast. And imagine if they can take the way they played yesterday to the away arenas that they play at. I'm telling you, they are a serious team. They are a team, like I said, they don't score very well from defensive half, but what they do is they suffocate you in their forward half. It's the traditional, typical Damien Hardwick way. 69 inside 50s, the damn wall breaks eventually. So they beat you by sheer volume of numbers, whereas Collingwood tried to, at least last year, hurt you going back the other way. But it's time Collingwood need to look at the mindset and really, really have some deep conversations with the team as a whole and say, what can we do to make sure we're not in these situations? We're a premiership side that don't win games by comfortable margins. We're not a team that we can watch and have a comfortable game enjoying the fruits of our labours watching these players. But you look at premiership sides in the past, I mean, you can even look at Collingwood, who didn't win the premiership in 2011, but they just dominated teams. I think, is that a thing of the past? Have all the teams caught up and it's a tougher competition now? Or are we just a side that really do well to win the close games, which allows us to win the flag in 2023? Look, it's not all doom and gloom. These are just, I guess, questions that I have to ask myself. I want to put out there to you guys. It's important to have these conversations. It's round 16. We're not far from the final series. We need a win next week. We need things to change. We had a lot of changes going into this game. We came off the bye. Players coming back from Bali, Gold Coast. There's a lot of variables in this, and I think this conversation can change very quickly if we can tick some boxes next week. But for now, we need to soak in what's just happened and try and get the most out of this, because I feel like there's so many learning curves when it comes to this game. There's another question you can ask with Jeremy Howe. He keeps swinging forward and has this unbelievable impact. Like, he made Mac Andrew work for his money in that last quarter. Jeremy Howe's like 6'2" and Mac Andrew is 6'6", and Jeremy Howe had Mac Andrew hugging him and giving away free kicks because of Jeremy Howe's aerial ability, because he was able to lead up to the ball carrier. There's that synergy between Nick Dacos and Jeremy Howe. I'm starting to see that. So, I mean, I don't think Jeremy Howe ever plays as a full-time forward just because he gives us so much with his ball use and his intercepting ability in the back line. But imagine if we had Darcy Moore, Billy Frampton, Charlie Dean, whoever it is, having that All-Australian season to release the shackles on Jeremy Howe to allow him to go forward a little bit more. That would be nice. But I know it's clear to me now that that is also just a break glass in case of emergency, and we're having too many emergencies lately. We're having too many. And God, we miss Murph. Now I'm starting to see that more and more is Billy Frampton, Charlie Dean, they're okay, right? They're okay, but they're no Nathan Murphy. Whatever Nathan Murphy did for Darcy Moore to be that All-Australian player, Billy Frampton and Charlie Dean can't do that for him. I don't know what it is, but God, I think that's going to be a big telltale at the end of the year as to how we finish our 2024 season. We're going to say, hey, this is why we miss Nathan Murphy, and I think it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt either way, but I'm hoping we can somehow find a way to overcome that. I think Charlie Dean had just been finding form, so maybe he comes back into the squad and then has an opportunity there to prove himself, but I still don't think he has the same qualities as Nathan Murphy. The intangibles that Nathan Murphy was able to provide Collingwood on a weekly basis. Look, guys, it hurts, but it can turn around very quickly. We're in a fortunate ladder position. Results have fallen our way recently. Collingwood, just get the win next week and build up from there. We got more legs into players who have been missing with Myercheck, DeGoey, Pendlebury, Joe Richards, who I said needs to be starting next week. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And hopefully that game against Gold Coast allows us to dust off the cobwebs immediately and go into that game Friday night against Essendon and secure that top 4 spot going into the next game. Go Pies.